Hi guys, Chris Ashley. Welcome back to the channel, Passion for the Wild and Wonderful. Today what I'd like to do is share with you a story about a bird I harvested back in 2017 named Hopalong. In 2014, I first came across this bird when I was bow hunting in a blind on a family friend's property that's nearby. I had set up a decoy at about 10 yards out in front of my blind that was up against some woods, and the turkey decoy was out in front of me in an open field. And I had been working this bird that was over the crest of the hill for a while, and eventually he started coming and making his way down through the field. I wish I still had it on film. I've deleted it now after all these years and not knowing that I was wanting to do things like this and share it with you all. But he ended up coming into the pasture field and getting probably within 60, 70 yards, and he just stood out there strutting and gobbling and watching my decoy. And you play the waiting game, and he was not willing to actually participate himself. He sat for several minutes just watching the decoy, and I probably messed up. I occasionally would call, and I'm sure he probably realized and said, wait a minute, that decoy is right there, it's not moving, and the sound's coming from right over here. I don't like it. And it wasn't long that he sort of started hobbling and skirted me around the decoy and stayed out of range with my bow. And so that's how he got the name Hopalong, because he had a pretty obvious limp to him. So after that, I ended up talking with the family friends whose house sort of lives right in the middle of a giant pasture field. They were able to watch him on a routine basis, working his way back and forth between patches of woods, and would see him limping his way across the field. So 2014, that was, I think, my only time that I was able to get on that bird. 2015, I really don't remember hooking up with him that year either. But in 2016, he had been roosted the night before, and I set up on him in a open clearing, sort of in the middle of the patch of woods, and worked him for a while. He eventually came in to, now that I know, probably about 60, 65 yards. And I hadn't really done a good job when I set up of trying to estimate where is my effective kill range that he needs to be within. So I was kind of just on the fly field judging when he was in there of how far I thought he was. And I kept working him, and he just was not willing to commit and come in any further. And he turned and was going away, and I got impatient and took the shot. And he took off running and then took off flying and seemed to be fine. So I gave him probably about, I think it was a week and a half to try to cool down. I ended up going in and doing a bunch of searching, making sure that when he pitched that he didn't fall or fly and fall down into some brush piles. But I never did find him. So a week and a half or so later, I had heard a gobbler roosted the night before, went in there and set up in roughly the same place and called and called and called, and never heard anything. Never even heard a bird fly down, which should have been a clue to me. So probably about an hour and a half after daylight, I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get up, ease back down over, and see if, I can go ahead and do some more body searching. I just wanted to be 100% sure that he wasn't in some of that brush, because I've had before where a bird will just pile itself up into a brush pile or under some leaves to try to hide. So I worked my way down over the bank, and as I was starting to look in just the first couple brush piles, all of a sudden over top of me, boom, he takes off flying off of his roost, and had been sitting there for probably, like I said, an hour and a half after daylight. And to me, that was again confirming that this was a sharp, wise old bird, that he was expecting that hen had better come to the base of my tree or I'm not getting down. So that was the only other time that I got on him. After that day of busting him off the roost, I was never able to get on the bird the rest of the season in 2016. So fast forward to 2017, and again, I had worked with my son to get him set up for his first turkey. So I had a pop-up blind that was set up on top of a ridge, and I had ended up calling him in a bird that he ended up taking when he was I think he was 6 years old when he harvested that first bird. So I gave that a few days to calm down, and I went back in and started working again, another group of birds, and I was able to see that he was over the hill and behind my blind with a bunch of hens, and I want to say with maybe a jake or two. But I end up again this time, it was one of those that I've said in some of the other videos, I decided that I was going to slow play him. So I was just doing nice, subtle calls every now and then. I did have the benefit of me being up on the high point, of being able to look through the back of the blind and see what he was doing, how he was responding, where the birds were, if they seemed alert or comfortable or not. So I just kept the calling very soft, only occasional, and my intentions were, I'm not going to pull him away from the hens, but if I can pull the hens up, he'll come in tow. And so it was probably a few hours after daylight that he had been down there with those hens and the jakes working, that they finally started coming up the finger and getting on top of the oak flat or the oak ridge that I was on. And the hens, they had no problem coming right up by my blind and going on right out the ridge. I think the jakes did as well, but the gobbler, old Hopalong, he ended up staying just over the crest of the bank and hugging just on the back side going around, to where when he finally got out to where I could see out the corner of the blind, his head pretty much went under the crest. And he finally circled far enough when he popped back up at about 25 or 30 yards. I had the exposed shot to be able to take and get a good head and neck shot, and was able to take the shot. So he ended up weighing around 24 pounds. He has just over 1 3/4 inch spurs. I think at the time he might have been like close to 1 7/8 inch spurs, and he has just over a 10-inch beard. So my estimate for him was, when I first started hunting him in 2014, he was already a mature tom. He had full long beard, full solid gobble, full fan. I estimate him at that time to be 2 or 3 years old. And when I harvested him in 2017, my guess is that's a 5 to 6 year old turkey. And I was kind of interested to find out of what is the general lifespan of a wild turkey on the internet, and they were indicating that it's typically like 3 to 5 years. So one of the things that was very interesting with this bird was, obviously he had several lives that he at least escaped with me, whether it was with the bow or whether it was with the shotgun, another time there that he got away. But I also ended up coming to find out that was interesting, when I skinned him out and started to breast out his meat, he actually had been shot with an arrow and had a 3-bladed scar that went all the way through both breasts and appears to have been a pass-through. And you could see on both sides that it was a perfect 3-blade broadhead that had went through him. So he was a tough old bird, and it was kind of a close to the story that we also found, that the reason why he hopped, or that he hobbled along, as Hopalong I call him, was, you'll see that on his 3 toes in the front, he has one toe on the left side that was all mangled and had a deformity to it that I'll show with some photos here, that made him have to limp or hop along, as I say it. So I just wanted to share this with you all. I see different times that people share history and stories with deer, and I know that's a lot easier probably with deer to share the story because they have unique characteristics of horns, maybe it's certain color patterns or what have you on their body or their hair that lets it to be able to be identifiable. For me, which I don't see a lot of people being able to have a history with a gobbler, Hopalong had that characteristic limp, and I thought it was just awesome to be able to hunt that old a bird and to finally be able to close the book or the chapter on being able to harvest him. And I'll be honest, there's another bird in Ohio this year that I'm looking forward to that has a very identifiable missing tail feather in his fan. And I'm hoping that I get a chance to come after that bird as well, because last year I ended up harvesting his little buddy that came in with him in a pair and had trail camera photos of him showing his fan with that missing feather and huge spurs. So I know that bird already has a good bit of age on him. And again, I think it would be neat to be able to close the chapter on another bird that I have some history with. So I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, please subscribe, like the channel. I'll have more content coming for you, but I just wanted to share you a little bit of history about some turkey experiences I've had here with Hopalong. Again, my name's Chris Ashley, and thanks for joining me.